Hello, my name is Kerry Stairs and I'm a partner at Charles Russell Speechleys, specialising in environmental, social and governance, or ESG issues. Today, as part of our new series on supply chains, I'm going to be talking about risk-based human rights due diligence. What is it and why should companies do it? In a tough and costly operating environment, what's the business case? We all know that businesses can cause serious harms to people. Forced labour is always the example that comes to mind, but business operations and supply chains can adversely affect human rights in a whole range of ways. By failing to ensure safe working conditions, for example, by restricting the formation of trade unions, discriminating against workers, infringing on privacy rights, or polluting the environment. Human rights due diligence is the process by which a business identifies these and other risks to people in its operations and its supply chain, and takes steps to prevent, mitigate and remedy harms done. The ultimate guide for businesses to doing this well is the UN Guiding Principles on Business and Human Rights. These were developed back in 2011 and continue to set the bar for best practice. Modern supply chains are often highly complex, which can make the task of due diligence seem overwhelming. But good human rights due diligence is risk-based, which means that businesses can and should prioritise where necessary, focusing attention and resources on the most salient human rights risks. In other words, those most likely to occur and the most severe if they do. Clearly, preventing and mitigating harms to people is something that most businesses would wish to do. But what's the business case for doing it? Well, for some companies, it's now a regulatory requirement. In the EU, for example, the Corporate Sustainability Due Diligence Directive, or the CSDDD, now mandates human rights due diligence for large companies. Other countries, including France, Germany and Norway, have introduced similar legislation. In the UK too, the government has recently issued new guidance on the Modern Slavery Act 2015, which significantly raises the bar on what's expected in a modern slavery statement and the policies, processes, governance and training that underpin that statement. In addition, the EU's new forced labour regulation will soon ban the import, export or sale by any company of any products made with forced labour at any point in the supply chain, making good risk-based human rights due diligence not just advisable, but an essential part of risk management. Regulation then, both current and coming down the track, is a part of why businesses need to do human rights due diligence, but the business case goes far beyond regulatory compliance. Companies that are too small to be caught by the due diligence regulations will be required to up their game on human rights by their large corporate customers and business partners. Companies that cannot show that they understand and are managing their human rights risks will increasingly find themselves excluded from bidding processes and other lucrative opportunities, or face costly delays while they catch up. There are also serious litigation risks. UK-based companies with international operations or suppliers are increasingly vulnerable to claims in the English courts, where harms to people happen in their operations or overseas supply chains. Claims, even threatened ones, are likely to be much more costly and resource intensive to manage than putting in place a sensible risk-based policy and process for managing human rights. Then there is, of course, reputational damage for businesses linked with human rights harms, increasing scrutiny from investigative journalists and expert NGOs, which can generate high-profile negative press coverage, jeopardising brand trust and investor confidence. Operational disruption is another serious concern. Forced labour import bans, like the new EU forced labour regulation, can result in goods being detained or destroyed, while labour disputes and strikes can impact business continuity. But the business case for doing human rights due diligence isn't just about good risk management and mitigation. Human rights due diligence can also be a strategic advantage. Investors of all kinds recognise that human rights risks can be highly financially material and are increasingly integrating human rights considerations throughout the investment lifecycle. Companies that can show that they understand and are taking sensible steps to mitigate human rights risks will position themselves strongly to raise capital or maximise value on sale. Moreover, companies that do sensible, risk-based human rights due diligence are also likely to be more resilient generally. Why is that? Well, because human rights due diligence means understanding who supplies you, building two-way and regular channels of communication, and strong long-term supplier relationships. And these are the sorts of supply chain dynamics that not only help to manage risks to people in the supply chain, but also build business resilience to shocks, including extreme weather, civil unrest, and pandemic. So what should companies do? Well, as an early step, it's critical to get human rights risks onto the board agenda and into the corporate risk register. A robust human rights approach will require cross-organisational working, and tone and direction from the top is essential. Get some help to develop a risk-based due diligence process that's appropriate to your business context. This includes developing a human rights policy, mapping out your supply chain, assessing your most salient human rights risks, and prioritising action and resources to prevent, mitigate, and remedy those risks accordingly. Perfection is not the goal here. What the regulations call for and what your investors, corporate customers, and other key stakeholders expect is credible and consistent progress. Thank you for watching. For help understanding your human rights risks and developing a due diligence process, please get in touch with me or with your usual Charles Russell Speechlys contact. And do look out for other episodes in this series on supply chains.